So we're ready to start. People in the back will sit down. We can have our wonderful next lecture. Last summer, the Ephemera Society of America, are you all there? So last summer, there was a World Stamp Exposition. I don't know the official title. Was that it? World Stamp Show. Every 10 years that takes place. And it was in New York City, and the Ephemera Society of America was delighted to be able to participate. Diane and Rob gave wonderful presentations. We had an Ephemera Society table where people could stop, and everyone discovered that they were also ephemera collectors, even though they didn't know. There's a great deal of overlap. And it was at that conference, at that exhibit, that I met our next speaker, who also collects Valentines, and now have competition with Valentines. But I did buy a wonderful Valentine envelope from him, so I'm grateful. And our speaker, who I'm proud to introduce, is Larry Lyons, and I will read you briefly some of his wonderful credentials. Larry Lyons is a leading expert on U.S. local posts. He also collected and exhibited Western Express Company mail. His U.S. collection was sold at auction in a named sale. He is executive director of the Philatelic Foundation, where he served as a trustee since 1999. Larry has been the editor of the Penny Post, the publication of the Carriers and Local Society, since 2000. He published a 3-volume set of identifier books for the forgeries of the local post. He's a member of the Collectors Club of New York, the American Philatelic Society, and the Classic Society. He's given presentations at all of these organizations and writes for several journals. A successful exhibitor, award-winning exhibitor, who has won over 30 grand awards and won Champion of Champions competition. It's my pleasure to introduce Larry Lyons.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay. Then Nancy, as she said, and she said, we'd love to have you as a speaker, and we're going to talk about American ingenuity. That struck me right away, and I said, my God, what could be more apropos to speak about than how the American mail system developed and how delivery of mail innovated and came about. The title of my presentation is here we go. What happened? There we go. Innovative changes in the development of a mail system in the United States. So what did we start with? We started with a country that really needed to have mail delivered and had no idea how to do that. They gave it a start, and they decided, let's make mail collect, meaning the recipient would pay the postage. This didn't work. It's like it was the wrong invention at the wrong time. As much as 1/3 of the mail was refused, and the cost to handle the mail was way too high. So you could not have people pay collect for their mail. That became obvious early on. People could write on the outside of an envelope a message, and when it was presented, you saw it at the post office, you could read the message, refuse the letter, and you paid nothing. But the postal department paid for it to get from one post office to another. The early method was that all mail would go from one post office to another, and you'd have to pick it up, or you'd send somebody to pick it up. Now this is the problem. For the people picking up the mail, it was a big time waster, and clearly another method was needed. The private sector stepped up to provide the innovative ideas. Independent mail companies went into business to carry mail intercity much more cheaply and efficiently. What innovative advances could be made with city mail? And local posts sprang into business to pick up mail and take it to the post office or make local city delivery. This is the post office in San Francisco in 1849. A ship would come in, it would have mail, people would know there'd be mail to be picked up, and they're standing on different lines. I don't know if they're seeing just different tellers or there's an alphabetical way to do this, but they would stand on these lines, get to the window and say, is there any mail for me? And the answer would be no, and you stood on the line for an hour and a half, and you got no mail. So this wasn't going to work. So let's look at creative ideas on how the postal system got working and the innovations that took place. This is an early letterbox. This happens to be TOWLE, T-O-W-L-E, in Boston. And they were TOWLE City Dispatch Posts, and they were on 7th State Street. The best part of this is it's a lot like the mailbox today. You would put your mail in the slot, and the local post would pull out the drawer, take out the mail, and either take it to the post office or deliver it. But the middle section really tells a whole different story than we have today, and this was the innovative ideas of the local post. Anything deposited before 8 a.m. would be delivered by 10 a.m. Before 10 a.m., delivered by 12. By 12, delivered at 2, and by 2, delivered at 4. So 4 times a day, mail would be delivered, or picked up, and delivered in Boston. Quite better than we have today. Great innovation, and the local posts were responsible for getting this done. And this happened in all the major cities of the United States, of the small United States. Okay. Next. We just saw a presentation which showed a lot of broadsides. The idea of broadsides was to advertise your wares, broadside meaning you posted it on the side of a building. And this one is Wiley's City Dispatch in Washington, D.C. And again, the best part of this is that it tells you that it's 1 cent each. And then there's the word prepaid. The local post decided very early on that mail should be prepaid. It's the only way it's going to get handled efficiently, because if the person's not home, you're going to have to come back to get your payment, so you get your mail prepaid. So they started issuing local post stamps for the prepayment of mail, and they sold U.S. stamps at the same time, so that you could purchase, they would pick up your mail, sell you your U.S. stamp, and they would take it to the post office for you. And again, they would go to the post office typically for 1 cent, and typically to a delivery for 2 cents, depending on which local post and where and what time period, and how big the business was. And again, it's 4 or 5 times a day, and it's at 8, 10 and a half, 2, 4 and a half, and 2. So again, you're getting tremendous, you're getting mail handled tremendously better than it is today, and it hadn't been handled before this. Okay, this is a business card. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of local posts, but Carnes City Letter Express was a local post in San Francisco. And they bought Gahagan and Howe, which is G and H. And this card must have been after they had done that, so it's G and H and Carnes, Letter and Parcel Express, at Loomis's News Depot in San Francisco, it's the corner of Sandstone and Washington Street. Loomis eventually bought Carnes and then used the rest of his stamps, eradicating the word Carnes from the top, and that became the Loomis stamp. But again, this is a business card, business cards were important, like the Broadsides, to tell you what the business was going to do. And it says, letters, notices, circulars, invitations delivered for 5 cents inside Taylor and Howard Streets, and also parcels delivered to all parts of the city, San Francisco, and boxes visited 2 and 3 times per day. This was typical of the local posts in San Francisco, that they'd set an outer limit, a northern limit on the city at Taylor Street, so they would want more money to go beyond that. And in the east and west directions, they would, in the east direction, it was also extra to go beyond Howard Street. Now the reason this is 5 cents, and all the other local posts are 1 and 2 cents, is the economy in San Francisco was totally different than the rest of the cities in 1849 and 1850. The gold rush was producing so much business, and all the hardware stores and everything associated with them were making so much money that 5 cents to get your mail was reasonable, because gold was $17.50 an ounce, and you wanted your time to go out and mine your gold. This is a real piece of stationery from the California City Penny Post. And it has advertisements and directions on the envelope corner. And it says that letters, papers, and other mail matter, small parcels, daguerreotypes, which we just saw in the previous presentation, addressed to the care of the penny post and deposited in any post office will be delivered immediately on the distribution of the mails. In this one says Stockton and Maryville. They later expanded to 9 different cities. They charged 2 cents for pickup and 5 cents for delivery in the second city. It was illegal for them to carry mail between the cities. The post office had to carry the mail between the cities. So they pick it up, take it to the post office. That's the first 2 cents. If that's the only service you wanted, you only paid. They had different envelopes with 2 cents. And in the second city, it was addressed to the penny post. Penny post would pick it up, take out of the envelope all of the letters, and deliver them in that second city. And they did this in 9 different cities. They broke the law because the post office was only moving between the 2 cities once a day, and people wanted their mail faster. So after the post office closed, the California Penny Post took the mail from one city to the next and delivered it. And they got pounced upon by the postmaster, and the California Penny Post only lasted 1 year. They did a big business, but the government, the first thing they levied on them was, you're getting this mail in a box at the post office. We want $500 for the box. That's a heavy rate. They paid it, and they continued to operate, but the postmaster then took them to court. And at court, the head of the California Penny Post, the proprietor, said, we don't want to take mail from one city to another. But if you don't do it, and all the patrons want it, we have to do it. So that was his response. Now, this is addressed to Morgan Hathaway and Company, who was an architect in San Francisco on Front Street. And the postmark on this is San Jose. So it started in San Jose, came to San Francisco, and was delivered to Morgan Hathaway in San Francisco. Quite a bit of the mail traveled in bundles to the California Penny Post. So sometimes you'll find stacks of envelopes, and they needed to, in 1855 and 1856, it was required that 3 cents postage was paid, whether in fact the government handled the envelope or not. So when there were stacks of envelopes and they didn't have any stamps on them, they threw 5 or 6 stamps on the top envelope, and that's why some of the envelopes have multiple copies of stamps. This is a stamp from the California City Letter Express, and it's a 10-cent stamp. And he's telling you everything that he does on his stamp. If you have wedding cards, notices, letters, etc., to be delivered, leave them at the California City Letter Express at Hogues and Madison Real Estate House, brokers and rent collectors on Montgomery Street. And if you received something, suppose you received a notice, all the notices were being delivered by, say, this local post, or you received a letter or a card, you get to learn who was handling the mail and what they did to do that, and then perhaps you would use their services as well. So now we're going to get more innovative. I mean, how much more innovative can we get than having local posts and we're actually delivering mail and picking up mail and 4 times a day and 5 times a day? We actually have one more innovation, which is popular today, and this is Express Special Messenger Service. And this is actually the years when it was created, and this is Hussey's post, and he ran an Express Special Messenger Service, and he also took mail to the post office. But his business was just like the preceding one. He was handling notices and billings and invitations. So he escaped the wrath of the post office because he had a special purpose. And Hussey and Boyd's had those special purposes, and they lasted long beyond all of the local posts that were in existence. Now again, you see on this the charge, and he's got charges. He's in Lower Manhattan, on the tip of Manhattan, and as you go up Manhattan, to Prince Street is 20 cents, and 14th is 25, and 23rd Street is 30, and 34th Street is 35, and 42nd Street is 40. What's beyond that? Prairie. That's it. In those years, 14th Street was Midtown. After 34th Street, you're really uptown. So Lower Manhattan. Now this is messenger service, and he's saying that he will get it there within the hour or whatever, and that's a very high rate for messenger service. But typically, his service was the delivery of all these notices and billings. So in doing all of that, he was doing all of that for 1 cent. He also had a half-cent rate for unaddressed mail. Now I puzzled over unaddressed mail. I will know this right away. What is unaddressed mail? That is today's junk mail. Okay? So if you wanted to advertise and have everything taken to all the buildings in a certain neighborhood, if you had a store, he would do that for a half a cent apiece. and they're unaddressed. So he doesn't have to look at them and deliver them at different doors. It's drop them at every apartment in the building at these locations. So, great idea. So we created first local delivery, now special messenger, and what else could they do? A time-posted label. This is Hussey's as well, but the idea of this was what time was the letter posted? Now, today you probably want to know what day it was posted, and what year it was posted. But in this case, you're going to draw in the hands on that clock. This one doesn't have the hands drawn in, but it's the 4th day of the 9th month of the year 1868. But if you drew in the hands, 3 o'clock, that's the time it was posted. And it was as quick as easy as that. Just put in your big hand and your small hand, and you had a time-posted label. Solves a lot of the situations that we have today. We got to fill out all these long forms and fill out all of these things to the post office and get them put on the envelope. Just stick a label on it and you got it. Now we got another major innovation that bears talking about. Wells Fargo and Company started the idea of these express labels. And these are just labels. They have nothing to do, there's no cost to these labels. But what the label means on the envelope is there are valuables in the envelope, typically money. And the outside of the envelope might say $131 enclosed. And Wells Fargo would know typically these are coming to the ESA office or to San Francisco, and they could be important documents, anything of value. So they said, if it's going to be valuable, let's put a label on it, typically red. And if you notice the label on it, and you can't miss a label like that, a lot of these were quite big, these labels. And if they were either printed from the city or there was a hand stamp, this one in Marysville. As soon as you saw that, you know there were valuables in the envelope. And this is a whole section of philately for collecting. Wells Fargo had over 1,000 offices and in 1,000 different locations, and they were incredibly good at handling the mail, the Western mail. And what they did was they made agreements with other Western Express companies. So if there was an express company up in the northern mines who took it down to a major city, Wells Fargo would take it the rest of the way. This way the other guy didn't have to bother coming down to San Francisco. He could stay up in his region and just bring all the miners' mail back. Quite often, people would tell the express company where they were. And the express companies kept track of in what mines, southern mines, what towns, what little hamlets the miners were working at. And when the mail came into San Francisco, the express company knew exactly where these people were and knew exactly which express company was going to get the mail to these people. And that was really innovative. And I didn't bring you anything to show you, but a lot of these things would just be the name. If it was in a city and it was local post mail, it would say near the corner of, or over the grocery store, or across the street from the bank. And they, since the local posts were handling all of the mail in those particular neighborhoods, they knew everyone and where everyone lived. And they were able to deliver it. Now in the East, I mentioned the independent mail companies. One of the independent mail companies was a Pomeroy and Company. Okay? And Pomeroy and Company did some labels, and these labels were placed on their mail matter, but they were mostly advertising labels. And typically all of these advertising labels always had either a steamship, a train, the means of which the mail was going to get carried. Now Pomeroy's label shows you the 4 cities in which he was operating: New York, Albany, Buffalo, and Toronto. And the independent mail companies interacted with each other, which you couldn't do today, to bring mail to a certain city and then have the other independent mail company take it the rest of the way. That would violate all the laws of today, but that's how the mail operated then. Got one more. This is the last. I don't know if you can call the library today and tell them you want a book delivered. I don't know. It seems like possible. Like, or you could get it on your Kindle. But in the 1850s, the Mercantile Library in New York City on Astor Place derived the means of creating a stamp. And the stamp had a registered number and a delivery check number, and you'd place your order, and you'd pay for the delivery by buying this for 5 cents, and the book would be brought to you. And I'm assuming that when it was ready to be returned, they knew where everything was, and it was for a certain period of time. And another innovative idea that started in the 1840s and 1850s. So that concludes my presentation. All right.
Explain, you said that there's stuff in these express letters from Wells Fargo, and it says clearly on the outside that there's something valuable here. So explain to the folks how come they did this. Yeah. Was it like a registry? Was it like a registry almost?
The entrepreneurs that own these companies, their livelihood depended on their reliability. And if their mail disappeared, nobody would ever use them again. And there was at least one case where that happened, and it got stolen and it went out of business. But it was like their word is their bond, and they would deliver all of these packages. Don't forget, I didn't mention on Wells Fargo, a lot of those letters were very expensive. They were coming a great distance. 25 cents, 50 cents, $1 coming from some of the northern mines. That's a lot of money. And they were getting paid in gold because the miners didn't have any money, they had gold. So if you're taking 5 ounces of gold for me, well, here's a pinch. That's to pay for the delivery of the letter. Amazing, right? Try that with your postman. Well, they got into the banking business, as you know, and the mortgage business. And Loomis, who I mentioned before, got into the Armored Car Service. So these names still exist today. Yes?
In general storekeepers' day logs, I've come across private charges for Morse code transcriptions, for in telegraphic messages. How competitive was this innovation in general storekeepers' logs and general business vis-a-vis the, say, the Hussey's Special Express?
I don't know the telegraph service in New York City, but I do know about the telegraph service in San Francisco. There was a telegraph office there. And what the telegraph offices did was they employed runners, the messenger boys. So when the telegram came in, they would either bring it over to a local post delivery person, or the same runner might be working for the local post to deliver the telegram. I think in New York City, there must have been telegrams in New York City because it had to be coming from out of the city into the city. But of course, to the West Coast was a great thing because it was traveling a great distance. How competitive? It's a whole field of philately. There are an awful lot of envelopes from telegraph lines. There are an awful lot of different telegraph lines. George Kramer won a champion of champions with the telegraph as his subject matter. So it is a big subject, and it was quite popular. Yes.
Larry?
Yeah.
May I address the question, if perhaps I've heard it, about the telegraph delivery envelopes and their variety and so forth? There is a publication that details that, called the American Stampless Cover Catalog, Volume 3. And it's a tabulation to about 1860 of all the telegraph delivery envelopes that were known some 20 years ago.
There was one more, yes.
Before the U.S. government created the postal system and did stamps, and people folded envelopes up and put seals on the back and wrote an address, how did they pay to get those delivered?
Well, the beginning was all collect.
But there's nothing on it that sort of says 5 cents, doesn't say anything,
Well,
they got delivered.
Yes, and it was, there were laws as to the distance, and the early rates before 1847 became 5 cents under 300 miles and 10 cents over 300 miles. But before then, in the early 1840s, it was 25 cents, 12.5 cents. That's why the independent mails did so well. They were doing it for 6 cents, so they would be tremendously cheaper to use than the government. Now, the interesting part for another subject, and maybe another presentation, is the carrier department was completely separate from the postal department. So they had to keep their own bookkeeping, and any letters that were given to them for delivery, they were totally independent. The post office was only delivering mail from city to city. Yes?
You may have addressed this. How did Wells Fargo get around this intercity restriction? They were delivering...
The West was totally different than the Eastern Seaboard. The local posts existed in the West until the 1870s because the government, and here's the exact answer to your question. I mentioned that the economy ruled everything, and the carrier rate was, I don't remember what it was, $3 a day or whatever for a carrier. You couldn't hire anyone in San Francisco for $3 a day to do anything, because you could work in a grocery store for $5 a day, or you could make tens of dollars a day in the gold mining industry or the hardware trade. So they handled all of the mail. So because they were handling all of the mail, the government realized that and said, well, we got to get some capital out of this. So in 1855 and 1856, they said, you must use prepaid 3-cent envelopes. So they got their 3 cents without handling any of the mail. And you know what? The Western Express companies didn't even complain. Just passed the 3 cents on to their clients and continued their operations. There were literally thousands of express companies, maybe only hundreds that are known today that envelopes still exist. But there were many advertised in the newspapers, of which there's no known examples today. Anything else? Okay, thank you.